How do I bring ultra cycling into more mainstream style cycling media? And I was like, oh, I've got to make that up next week and I've got to do the extra as well. And I'm like, what have I set myself up for here? They're all pressure cooker style events because you're racing against the clock, you're racing against a time or a previous record. And I think that adds to the excitement, but it adds to the difficulty of them all.
There are ultra cyclists, and then there's Jack Thompson. In 2022, he rode an astonishing 52 Everest and scaled 1 million meters of climbing within a single calendar year, establishing new world records for both achievements. In 2021, he even took on a professional cyclist in the Tour de France, and against all odds, despite giving the pros a head start of 10 days, he rode into Paris ahead of them. And his endeavours don't stop there. He even rode an astonishing 3,500 kilometres inside a single week, completely unsupported, an achievement that leaves most in awe. In this video, we'll get an insight into the highs and lows of long distance ultra cycling, the hurdles, both mental and physical, and talk about his bike setup as well, and some tips that I've started using already. So what's the motivation for doing these ultra extreme distance challenges? Where does it come from?
I guess I enjoy pushing myself. Yeah. I enjoy setting a goal and going about achieving it. And I think I almost get I'm almost more motivated about the process that goes into achieving something than actually achieving it.
But these are big goals, not like small goals. They are massive goals, aren't they? So
yeah.
What behind going as big as you do go?
Look, admittedly, I'm a bit obsessive about things, and I suffer from like an obsessive compulsive style personality. So when I do something, I struggle to do it at 90%. I want to do more, and I get enjoyment out of doing more and pushing myself and looking at what's possible and trying to expand what's possible and what I think I can do, like a limit. Can I go beyond that limit? The satisfaction I get when I finally complete it is really rewarding. And so for that reason, I'm drawn to do more and push it further and see what's possible.
Yeah. Have you found your limit yet?
I was close last year, right?
Oh yeah?
Yeah, last year was a really hard year. We did a year-long challenge. Okay. And like a year is a long time when you're focused for that whole time.
Yeah.
And there were times there where I thought, what am I doing this for? And there was a fundraising component to the year, which I think made it easier in one sense, that I was doing it for a reason, but it also was challenging because I couldn't control the fundraising dollars. I could ride my bike and I could do the riding component, but I couldn't control the money that was coming in, and that was also a stress. So it was like a double-edged sword. I was doing it for a good reason, but I was stressed because I wasn't necessarily getting the donations I thought I'd get.
And doing that for a year, that's almost like a job, isn't it? That you're trying to maintain that high level.
Yeah, so it was like, if we look at on the bike riding, it was 25, 26 hours of riding every single week as like a minimum. Yeah. And then there's all the stuff that goes around it. So the stretching, the going to the doctor and making sure my iron levels are where they should be, the resting. I think often you think of a cyclist job is riding the bike, but there's all like sleeping's part of that job as well, because you need to get the sleep, and eating the right food's part of it as well. The travel's part of it. Like there's more than just cycling, and it was just like a pressure cooker for a year. It was horrible.
And that fundraising element and raising awareness for charities, is that something that you see being a bigger part of your challenges going forward? Because I guess when you started, it's more of a personal challenge. Where are my limits? How far can I go? But now you're using your kind of platform to raise awareness. Is that something you see being more important and passionate for you go forward?
For sure. The mental health component of what I do is, I think, the future for me. Okay. Not necessarily fundraising, but already we're working with corporate companies and talking about goal setting and the power of goal setting and how to actually go about setting a goal and working towards it to better somebody's mental health. So I think that's the direction that I want to take more, working with kids, working with people who aren't motivated at work and trying to motivate them. There'll always be the cycling component because that's what I enjoy and what I do. But I think I want to try and introduce more of how can I apply what I've learned on the bike to somebody that's, maybe they're a cyclist, but maybe they're not, to better their mental health.
I was looking through your Wikipedia page before making the video. One of the things that stood out for me was the Tour de France challenge. So you rode the route in 10 days and caught up and overtook the pros. And the Tour de France held up was like the toughest, most extreme challenge. And you did it in 10 days.
Yeah.
I mean, how on earth did you come up with that idea? Where does the planning come from and
that was
the execution?
That was like a 3-year plan, right? So I had this
3-year plan.
goal before pre-COVID.
Okay.
Of that's what I wanted to do. And COVID came and I couldn't do it. And then funding fell through and I couldn't do it for whatever reason. And eventually I got to this point where I could do it. And the reason, like the sort of concept behind it was like the Tour de France is the biggest bike race in the world. There's media coverage, there's people talking about it.
Yeah.
How do I sort of bring ultra cycling? Well, my goal was how do I bring ultra cycling into more mainstream style cycling media? And I thought, all right, well, there's the Tour de France. How do I piggyback on the Tour de France and try and put into perspective what ultra cycling is? And I thought, well, one way to do that would be to ride the Tour de France in half the time of the pro peloton. Yeah. And so I thought, oh, well, how would I make that interesting? All right, I'll give them a 10-day head start, and then I'll ride the entire Tour de France route. And I'll transfer where they transferred, so I didn't ride like Lockley did. It was like a slightly different concept with the goal of reaching Paris before they reached it. So that's how it all came about. And that trip was like a whirlwind because it was, again, like they're all pressure cooker style events because you're racing against the clock, you're racing against a time or a previous record. And I think that adds to the excitement, but it adds to the difficulty of them all.
Yeah, and we've really seen ultra cycling explode over the last few years, haven't we?
Yeah.
There's more events and more people doing Guinness World Records and stuff, and you've been doing it for quite a few years now, so you've seen it firsthand and growing. It's great to see more people get into it, and more media coverage as well. So
yeah,
we feel like in a healthy place. And
for sure, it's definitely become more mainstream. We were chatting at dinner last night, like 5 years ago, if you went and rode 250 kilometres, it was like, wow, that's like a big ride.
Yeah.
But now you go and do it, no one bats an eyelid. It's like, oh, I did that last weekend as well. And it's cool to see that it's become more popular.
Yeah.
I wonder where it'll go. Like, I wonder what, like 250 kilometres was extreme. It's not anymore. What is extreme?
Yeah, and what is the limit? How far can you go, I guess? And what's your view on like doing actual events, organised events like TCR, which you've done in the past, versus self-planned events, which you have done yourself?
Yeah. I think that the events like TCR and Tour Divide, they're great because they get more people excited about ultracycling, more people involved. There's more media buzz around it. For me, I really enjoy the creative aspect of trying to come up with a challenge, trying to come up with a way of testing myself against myself, like mentally and physically, and also trying to work an angle, whether it's to raise awareness, whether it's to talk about climate change, talk about tourism. I like that aspect of it as well. So while I've done them in the past, I don't necessarily know if I want to do them, moving forward because, I enjoy the creativity. I enjoy working with brands and working with people to make it a team event. I've got like a team around me. I've got support around me. I like to be able to share that with them as well.
Do you see yourself doing your own events at some point in the future? Like hosting events for some crazy challenge?
Maybe not ultra cycling events, but I'd like to do something where I take people on a tour or an adventure and let them experience what ultra cycling is and sort of equip them with the tools and the tricks to do their own ultra cycling.
Okay. So what are some of the lessons you've learnt over the last few years of pushing your body and your mind to limits? What are sort of some tips you may share with viewers how to overcome the obstacles we might, like in terms of the mental side of it, the fitness side? Yeah,
I think there's probably 3 big things. One of them is start slow. I think, like as a general rule, you can't go from an amateur golfer to a professional golfer overnight. It's sort of similar with ultra cycling. You can't go from riding 150 kilometres a week to riding 1,000 kilometres a week.
Makes sense.
It's a slow process to get there, and I think you should enjoy the process of getting there. I think we often get caught up in chasing that goal or chasing that dream, and we forget about, that's the 1% at the end, but there's the 99% that happens in the middle. So I think take it slow, slowly get there. While you are doing it, like fueling is one of the biggest things to concentrate on because like a car without the petrol in it, the car doesn't run, and the body's the same without the fuel in it. The body sort of can't operate at the level it needs to operate on day after day after day. And I think the third thing is, if I had to say one more, maybe around like work off the bike. So like having a stretching regime.
Yeah, I'm terrible at stretching.
Yeah, like a stretching or a strength training regime. While it's not cycling, it'll turn you into a better cyclist because you'll be more nimble, more agile, and less prone to injury.
Yeah, I guess like injuries, you must have a few injuries, or you managed to avoid injuries through your...
Touch wood, I had one at the beginning, which was like an iliotibial ITB band issue, and it's because I ramped it up too quickly. I tried to do too much too soon, and yeah, I was off the bike for about 6 months, and that's when I started doing the core stuff, the gym stuff, and I became obsessive about stretching. And now every day I'll do 10 minutes before bed, just because it's peace of mind, and it's also good for the body.
So you just made it a habit that you do every day, like brushing your teeth. You do stretching.
Yeah, exactly.
No question. Okay, yeah.
Every evening, and I'll do a bit of a wake up sort of stretch in the morning, just getting out of bed, doing a little bit of, opening up my lower back, and just probably I don't need to do it every day, but like I said, I'm obsessive, and once I start doing something, I like to continue doing it.
When you're on the bike and doing your like crazy challenges, how do you keep focus and like stop your mind from wandering? Because when I'm doing long distance stuff, I find my mind goes all over the place and away from the goal, and you almost like you're trying to talk yourself out of it and stuff because you're suffering and it's hurting.
Yeah.
How do you like keep focus and all they sort of keep everything distracting you to one side?
I think that the best thing that I've sort of realized over the years is every goal needs to be broken into smaller goals.
Yeah.
So like if it's a 1,000-kilometer ride, when you think of 1,000 kilometers, you think, shit, that's a long way to ride. But if you think of it as 2 lots of 500, still a long way, but it's sort of more manageable. You get to the halfway point, then you get the second half. I like to break it into smaller chunks and use like earned or associated rewards. So an earned reward might be when I get to 100 kilometers, I'm going to put the music in, and I'm going to listen to music for an hour, and then I'm going to take the music out, because I know when I put the music in, I'm more motivated, I'm ready to push harder and do more. An associated style reward might be, all right, for the at the end of every 3 hours, I'm going to stop at a gas station, I'm going to buy X, Y, and Z, and I know that every 3 hours I've got that to look forward to. And it's just ways of like breaking it up into manageable chunks where there's a reward and you're treating yourself to look forward to. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like keeping your mind motivated to keep pushing.
That's very sensible advice. And it sounds like you're quite good at planning and breaking it down in small chunks. That like quite methodical in how you approach it. There's nothing random about it or left to chance. It's like it's a plan. You're following that plan.
I like to plan it as much as I can. I'm a bit like with symmetry and everything, I'm a little bit obsessed with this.
But it clearly helps you. It clearly helps you deal with the challenge of doing these big challenges. Yeah,
for sure. For me, it's like if I didn't have the structure and I didn't have the, I'm sort of trying to control as much as I can that's controllable, so that there's less things that can go wrong.
Yeah. So when you're actually doing the ride, all the stress is removed, and that you're just doing the ride, aren't you?
Yeah, and then I just concentrate on the ride and any random things, the flat tire or the gas station that's closed. Yeah. I deal with that on the fly because I can't plan for that.
Okay. Let's talk about bikes and equipment and what bikes you use. Do you have a go-to setup, tires, tubeless, 1x, 2x? What's your sort of like default setup?
So over the years, I've tried lots of different bikes, and I've been with Specialized for a couple of years now, and I've managed to try Tarmac, Athos, and Roubaix. Yeah. My go-to bike is Roubaix.
Okay.
Just because of the type of riding I'm doing. It's long distance, it's generally day after day, and I want a bike that's fast, but it also isn't going to beat me up. Okay. So the Roubaix with Future Shock and all of the technology that's built into that bike compliance-wise is the perfect bike for long, and fast riding. So I'm on a 56 Roubaix expert model. Yeah. I'm riding a SRAM red 2x group set. I'd quite like to try 1x because I'm interested in the simplicity of just having one front chainring, but I think the gear ratios are something to play with. Tyres, 35mm Mondo tyres from Specialized.
35, okay, yeah, fat tyre.
I just figure like, for me, I can run at a lower pressure. It's more comfortable. When I get tired, you know, if there's a crack in the road or there's some sort of abnormality in the road, I'm less inclined to hit it and sort of ride into it. I'm a big believer in like the bigger tyres. And actually going back now, probably 3 or 4 years, I've ridden across to Portugal before and I used 42mm slicks, which, you know, at the time was like, why are you riding 42mm slicks? And I thought, well, it's just comfort. Like I really believe in big tyres. Other specifics, Saddle, Specialized Phenom 155. As far as quirky bits and pieces go, I run long pedal spindles because I find I'm a bigger guy and perhaps I've got bigger hips, but I'm more comfortable when my legs are further apart. But aside from that, the bike is pretty much stock.
And when you're doing these challenges, are you camelback or are you all storage on the bike, like frame packs? Or does it depend on how far you go and how much? I guess you try and travel as light as possible, but you got to have some stuff on the bike, I guess.
Yeah. So I actually rode over for this event from Spain.
Yeah, so we're in Portugal now, and you live in Girona.
I'm in Girona, yeah.
How long did that take you then?
So it was 7 days.
7 days. Quite
and it was around between 200 and 250 kilometres a day. So not super crazy, but still big days and like a good opportunity to test the bike. I don't generally use bags. On the way over, I used actually a front little burrito bag, just so I could put the camera and like a jacket in it. I wanted to carry a bit more. If I was doing an event, I wouldn't use that because I think the tests show it's not aerodynamic. There's a lot of drag on those front bags. So I'd use a frame bag, or the Nurubay actually has bottle mount, like 2 mounts on the top tube, so you can run a little bag on the top tube. But yeah, I try and go as light as possible. In saying that, I always carry 2 1-litre bottles with me. Because the more you have to stop and fill up water, the slower you're going to be. So I prefer to carry it.
Take the weight penalty, but not have to stop so much.
Especially on a flattish route. I didn't run a camelback over because my father was actually with me. He drove over, so he could stop and give me support when I needed it. But for like the longer gravel events and stuff, I think the camelback on the back is great again because it's stopping you from having to stop and get water along the way.
They seem to go into a camelback, don't they? Those gravel events.
I think they're good. I think they're because like if you look at it, like if you stop for 10 minutes every 3 hours,
adds up.
It adds up. Like suddenly that you've lost an hour, which is 30 kilometres, which is quite a lot.
So most of your riding, are you mostly road based, or do you do gravel stuff as well, or is that an area you're exploring as well?
Mainly road, but I'm doing a little bit of gravel as well.
It's hard to avoid it, I guess. It's so popular.
And like I enjoy it.
But
I think I like the road because it's fast, it's efficient, and I don't really like the stop-start nature sometimes of gravel. If it's rough gravel, if it's smooth gravel and it's fast, I love it. But if it's jumping over rocks, and I'd prefer to take a mountain bike out personally.
What's the toughest challenge you've done so far? I mean, the one that stood out for me is an Everesting a week, which I mean, just one of those a lifetime sounds bad enough. You did one a week.
2022, the Everesting a week and the 1,000,000 metres of elevation was seriously hard.
Is there any point when you question these, like you plan them and think over a beer maybe, whatever? You think, sounds great, and then maybe wake up and think, what am I doing?
First week of that challenge, when I realised I'd miscalculated how much elevation I had to do, like simple maths, but I miscalculated it. I was about 2,000 metres behind in the first week. And I was like, I've got to make that up next week, and I've got to do the extra as well. And I'm like, what have I set myself up for here?
And once you announce it and stuff, you can't kind of go back and...
it's like a blessing and a curse.
Change your mind.
Because it's like it keeps you accountable. But it's also like, I wish I'd never said I was going to do that.
So you be careful what you plan then.
That's it.
But you sound like an ambitious guy, and you're not going to change your way of coming to crazy challenges. So what's next then? What's the next big challenge for you coming up?
So I have one in November. There's a trail in Australia where I'm based, or where I was based, called the Mundabiddi. And it's 1,000 kilometres on gravel. And it's like single track style stuff. So it goes from where I was born to a town right down in the south on the coast. And it's a fastest known time attempt along that trail. So that's the sort of record component. And then we're actually going to visit schools along the way back and chat to kids about the power of the bike in their own mental health,
Wow,
and
that's
trying to get
amazing.
more kids riding.
Yeah. What's the time you aim for in that event then?
So the current record's 2 days, 17 hours. So I want to try and break that.
And is that on a Roubaix or would it be on the...
I'm going to do it on Diverge STR.
Okay, makes sense, yeah.
And put the 47mm tyres on there. I think the previous record's on a mountain bike. So I'm hoping that being on Diverge STR is actually faster, because it's a faster bike in a faster position. But the only thing is the tyre clearance depending on weather. So I've just got my fingers crossed.
So I guess you from the sounds that you like to plan things, so you must have planned how fast you need to go to break the record by a certain amount, so you've done all that planning, have you?
Yeah, I've sort of got a time in mind
Okay.
that I'd like to do.
And you know how fast you have to go and what your checkpoints you have to get to
Yeah,
be on track to break that.
yeah. I'm not going to say the time because
No, I don't
like,
want you to announce it. I was just like to kind of figure out how you approach that, because you don't want to go into it and leave it to chance. You've got to have a bit of a plan, haven't you? To like.
I always do it on like average speed.
Okay.
So I turn the computer on so that it's like elapsed average speed. So if I stop, the average speed goes down while I'm stopped.
Oh, not just your ride time average.
Yeah, because I've done that before, and I'm like, oh, I'm ahead, and then I'm like, oh no, I actually
stopped for an hour there.
Yeah, I've lost it. So I had to do that, and then I do it all on what was the previous average speed, and I try and set my average speed to be, for example, like half a kilometre higher or a kilometre higher, and just sort of see where I'm at through the day.
That's sounds fairly simple way of doing it. I'm sure it's not simple when you're
Yeah.
actually doing it, and you're chasing the average speed.
Yeah, I think so. Like once you've got the average speed and you work it out, then you sort of work out while you're riding what power do I need to be putting out to sustain that average speed, and then it probably goes more time looking at the power, because I know the average power, that'll be the power I need to sustain to keep on that speed target.
Okay, sounds good. That's November.
November.
And we can find out about that Instagram, Twitter,
Yeah, on
YouTube.
Instagram. I'm not on Twitter. I do have a YouTube, but it's a small YouTube.
I'll put a link to all his socials down below and YouTube, so you can go and give him a subscribe on the channel and follow
thanks
you
a
on
lot.
there. Yeah, thanks for your time, mate. Really nice to chat to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been good to chat.
Cool, thank you.